In modern-day America, almost every college major requires you to take an English class. That's partly because communication is an essential skill in the modern world. In particular, most careers that require a college education expect you to graduate from college with the ability to write a complete and correct paragraph, and possibly to maintain a single idea through a longer document, such as a grant proposal or an application. But another skill that's really important that comes out of English class is the ability to follow directions. One thing I hope you'll be attentive to during this course and then throughout the rest of your college career and then beyond into your own careers is following directions. Sometimes following the directions can be the difference between an A and an F. More often it's the difference between something smaller. In college, we give grades to show you how closely you've met the directions and how closely you've met the standards that will be expected of you after you graduate from college with respect to writing, organization, consistency of ideas, and professionalism. Of these, following the directions is probably the most important step. Your first essay for me is a review essay. If you decide instead to write a memoir of your time in high school, you will not pass that essay. Following that basic direction is the first step. But in addition, it's important that you look at the specific requirements. How long is the essay supposed to be? What sections should it have? What is the topic expected to be? What parameters and rules are there that confine you to particular things? These may seem a bit arbitrary, but you are going to have arbitrary seeming rules for the rest of your life when it comes to written work. Sometimes you may be asked to write a cover letter for a job or even a resume to fit on a single page or perhaps 2 pages. If you write a newspaper article or some other thing for publication, you may have very precise word counts that you need to adhere to in order to maintain the standards set by a publication. Grant proposals may require you to write something with a certain number of pages or even a certain number of words or characters. Even a Twitter post has a limited number of characters. They will not allow you to publish it if you go over. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to talk you through your first assignment sheet and show you the way that you should engage not just with all the assignment sheets in my class and the rubrics as well, but also the ways that you should look at assignment sheets for papers, for projects, and for other materials in other classes, and then when you get into the workplace, for things that you're asked to write or produce for your boss, for your colleagues, and more. Learning to write to specific specifications is a core part of the college experience and something that employers will expect you to be able to do after you graduate. At Southeastern, the freshman English instructors all use the same grading rubric to ensure consistency across sections. Here you can see a copy of this grading rubric on my screen, which is also posted in the folder for your review essay on Moodle. You'll notice that each section gives a description of what an A, a B, or other levels of essays should look like. I imagine that some of you might find this overwhelming, as each section includes the same information in the same sequence to show you what each respective paper would look like. The general word for this is holistic grading. So you can see here what an A essay would look like. Its form and content demonstrate focused attention to purpose and audience. The writing exhibits all or most important formal and rhetorical characteristics of the genres represented, and so forth. You'll notice that there are a lot of similarities between each sentence and each respective description. So for example, at the top of this page, an A essay says, form and content demonstrate focused attention to purpose and audience. The B essay says, in most cases, form and content show careful attention to purpose and audience. So the difference between an A and a B essay in this respect is consistency. If you look at these, you'll also notice that the bottom line always talks about how well the writing you've done for the class responds to the prompt you've been given, which is probably actually the most important line in the prompt because a lot of college is about learning to follow directions. So let's toggle over now, and instead of looking at the grading scale, which you should always have in the back of your mind when you write an essay, let's look at the specific directions for the English 101 review. Here's a copy of the English 101 review that I've given you. It describes what I'm hoping you'll accomplish in this essay and how you should go about preparing it. I've asked you to review an establishment, and I've specifically asked you to review a specific type of establishment. I've given you some rules for the parameters you should use, some directions for your thesis statement, some suggestions for organization, although you have some flexibility there. And then I've emphasized at the end that you should include a number of details in your essay. I've also noted the length requirement for your essay, the deadline for your essay, and how it will be recommended. At the very bottom, I've told you some best practices you could use for this essay. Although these aren't essential, they might help you plan ahead and work on this essay more coherently over a period of time. Review these directions at your leisure on Moodle, so I'm not going to read them aloud to you. I think that would be a waste of both of our times. But on this essay and most other essays that you'll be writing for me, the goal of your activity should be to figure out how to make the directions you've been given on a particular assignment align as clearly as possible with the freshman English grading scale that you've also been given. This is a great practice for real-world applications where your boss or a funding body may often ask you to write something to meet a certain series of specifications and then give you a separate set of grading requirements that they'll use to evaluate how well you've accomplished the task you've been set. Now, I feel that the freshman English grading rubric, while full of wonderful information, might feel a little daunting if you're looking at it for the first time. All of the paragraphs contain the same information in the same sequence, but it might be difficult on a casual read to figure out what the particular difference is between an A paper, a B paper, and a C paper, for instance. So I've reproduced the information from that text-heavy PDF into a table. You don't have to use this, but you're welcome to. It includes the same information in an alternate layout so that you can see exactly how each level essay differs from those above and below it. For instance, a C essay says form and content exhibit a modest but inconsistent attention to purpose and audience. You can see that at the top under C. A B essay says, in most cases, form and content show careful attention to purpose and audience. So the difference here is on whether the form and content show careful attention most of the time or some attention inconsistently. If you look over at the A column, something similar. Form and content demonstrate focused attention to purpose and audience. So focused attention would mean that you would never break from that attention to the purpose and the audience, while careful attention, a B paper, would show that you try and may occasionally lapse. A C paper would show a modest but inconsistent attention, so there would be clear gaps in the attention to the purpose and audience, but overall it would show effort throughout. If you can see the D column, which is sort of running off the edge once I've zoomed in, it demonstrates little and inconsistent attention, so the paper pays attention to this less often than it fails to do so. This is already uploaded to your course page, so you're welcome to consult all the different sections of it and see how the papers differ with respect to each rubric parameter. Now, I've already told you that the goal of each essay that you write in this class, and much writing that you'll do professionally later on, is to figure out how to meld the particular grading parameters with the directions you've been given for a particular assignment. One thing I hope you'll learn to do during this course is to practice figuring out how a particular set of assignments or directions can fulfill separate grading parameters that you've been given. Those might be, as in college, something to give you a particular score, but eventually they might evaluate whether you get funding on a project, whether your work gets published, or even whether your Wikipedia article remains unedited, something you can be proud of. For this essay in particular, to ease you into this transition, I've done a little bit of that work before you. Also in your freshman English folder, you'll find this rubric, which shows you in gray the same items that are already on the Southeastern freshman grading rubric, and then adds in white some suggestions for ways you could apply those to this particular review essay. Let me zoom in for a moment. For instance, for C, form and content exhibit a modest but inconsistent attention to purpose and audience. I've suggested this review should make a specific recommendation because that's something I've asked you to do in your assignment. But it may not be thoroughly substantiated or may not be written to appeal to the target reader. That's me, your educated newcomer. You know I'm the target reader because I've already mentioned that in the beginning of the directions. I said, I'm new to Louisiana. Thus, for your first essay, I would like you to review an establishment in Louisiana and suggested that it would give me a recommendation of a place I might visit. If I'm your target reader, you'll want to clearly and consistently inform me, an educated individual new to the area, about the pros and cons of your chosen place. So in the A and B column, it says you would offer a clear and well-supported recommendation appropriate to the assignment parameters and to the visitor, that's me. The tone should be appropriate for me, but it should still be applicable for a wider audience. Now, you don't need me to read each of these items to you. This form is already available on our course page. So my suggestion is that you look over this form and think about which parts of it are clearest and whether any parts of it are confusing. You can certainly ask me if any of them are confusing, and you're also welcome to ask me if other strategies would work, because this is just a sample of one way that you might apply the departmental rubric to the directions that I've given you for this first essay. However, following these steps, looking at the directions, thinking through the directions, and then considering how they might apply to the grading parameters is a crucial part of learning to make better grades on your essays, on other written college work, and then later on to writing things that you won't need to revise for a boss that can be accepted by a publisher or another entity, for example, if you're writing a press release, or even for writing something that might earn you some money at some point in your life.